Did anything happen today?
I was just going to say the same thing. Wild day.
It's been a busy day in Western New York.
We're on to Detroit.
We'll
do it live.
Yeah, the Bills
and
are
then
both
we're on to Detroit.
I know. We're going to talk about it. The Bills obviously moving the game on Sunday to Detroit because of the weather that's expected. And then the Bills will go back to Buffalo and then go back to Detroit for the Thanksgiving game. But welcome. Thanks for joining us. Mike, Dan, I'm Jenna. We're going to talk all about this Browns matchup as well, what to expect from the team. Injuries, you know, all the fun stuff. Any comments, questions? Guys, how we doing?
Kyle Backle saying, congratulations on 19K. We are approaching 20.
Yes.
Let's go.
Hats were sent out.
Yes. A few hats were sent out to a few of our OGs, you would say. Yes.
My hair looks very strange. I feel like my hair looks very strange. Okay, sorry.
Jenna's having one of those
I'm
days
having
today. She's been mean to Dan and
I don't have time. I don't have time to do anything. We're just going to buckle up and get through it.
Well, you just host the show.
She's the host.
We just do everything
I can't get in a word edgewise.
Well, you got plenty of them in today.
Mike, I have a pet peeve when you're trying to listen to something and someone yammers over the top of it. Dan, you know what I'm saying. You can't even agree. You can't even disagree with me. You know. Are you trying to listen to that?
Dan is nice about it. Jenna.
In the moment? Yeah. No.
Bullseye saying you guys are becoming the odd squad. I love it.
Odd squad.
Bullseye. Becoming. We've been.
Bullseye, have
pretty
your,
ragtag.
Have your eyes out for the mail coming in a little bit.
Ooh.
He knows.
All right, we're going to start the show.
He's an OG.
Very shortly. Bills Browns, week 11.
Nothing to talk about today, though.
We're going to take a quick break. Join us in 3 seconds.
Buffalo Plus, your interactive look at the week in football, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
All right, welcome to Buffalo Plus, presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike Catalana, Dan Fetes. I am Jenna Cottrell. We're going to get all about talking about this Bills-Browns game. But, of course, the news of this week, Bills-Browns being moved to Ford Field in Detroit. Mike, because of the weather, we have a lot to talk about in terms of this game and what the change will mean for this Bills team coming up week 11 as we get started. And we know it's going to be quite an interesting travel trip. We'll get into that as well. But the Bills now moving this game because of the weather. Do you think this was the right decision?
Yeah, I think they had to do it. And I think this is really the NFL's move in conjunction with the Bills. I think the Bills would have done anything they could to stay at home, be able to practice as best they can, work out at home, and then play the game. But the logistics were over the top. And then the problem with the league is when the league looks at it and says, well, what happens if the snow is this bad that there's a state of emergency, you can't get workers there, you can't get the field cleared, and you're going to have to try to play another game on Thursday in Detroit. So the league stepped in and said, all right, fellas, Detroit's open. Let's use this place. And I think it was the smart move, the practical move, even though it adds another layer for the team.
The funny thing is that how this would have been handled or could have been handled if the Bills weren't playing on Thanksgiving. That maybe they could have waited another day or two, pushed it to Monday night like they did last time they went to Detroit in 2014. So I think that added the extra wrinkle of, hey, you already have a short week. There was talks, we were hearing rumblings of pushing the game possibly back to 4:30, all of these things, but it just, time crunch became more of a factor.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. It seems like the right decision. Ron Raccuia, who's very high up at the Bills, talking about how Homeland Security, local and state authorities got involved, making sure that it was the right decision both for the team, the personnel, as well as the people in the local community, which makes sense. But, Mike, there's a lot that goes into this decision.
No, it absolutely is. It's a travel day. Now, look, they're playing on Thursday, Thanksgiving, in Detroit. Normally, you would have a home game. I mean, that's tough to travel, come back. It's an odd thing. The team's plan is to travel on Saturday, come back after the game on Sunday. That's the norm for every week. And then they would travel again on Wednesday, come back on Thursday. And sometimes people say, well, you're going to be in Detroit. You could just stay there, which is true. But Dan, when you do that, you add a whole nother element of practice facilities, rehab facilities that isn't needed when it's a 1 hour flight.
When it's a 1 hour flight.
That's
if this is the West Coast, when you have teams that play in LA and then San Francisco, a lot of times it's like, well, it's just better to stay out there. But that's planned ahead of time. That's planned as soon as the schedule comes out. This isn't all of a sudden a spur of the moment like, hey, by the way, we're going to stay here. So I agree. And from what we're hearing, Sunday the weather should allow them to travel back, and then obviously Monday, Tuesday, normalcy, getting to be in their facility. It's also the rehab, it's the film, it's their rooms, it's their beds, it's their houses, all of those things before heading back on the road.
Yeah, and Mike, I mean, Brandon Beane talked about the decision and what went into it, because obviously there are a lot of layers to this. But again, this was something that the team decided, the NFL decided, and it was what was made clear that, okay, they have to move this game. It's snow, it's Buffalo, but logistics speaking, Brandon Beane said it had to do with a lot more.
You can't buckle your knees. If things happen in this business all the time, we know where we live. We know weather can be a factor. I wasn't here in 2014, but I've heard many stories of that snow event and what happened and how they handled it. So again, we're prepared. The guys, we don't have the players that were here from 2014, but we've talked it through and we've got a plan. And like I said, I think Sean's done a good job of getting the guys to focus on the task at hand.
All right, and to clear things up, some people were saying this is why the Bills need to build a dome, because you can avoid stuff like this. Dan,
it's just incredible.
What is your response to that?
Well, there's reasons to build a dome, but it has nothing to do with what's happening this week. It wasn't about getting the field clear. And like you said, Sunday may be actually decent without a lot of snow. It's all the logistics. And I got news for people who don't know. Those logistics would have been in place even for a dome stadium.
Even if the stadium was covered, the field, you have parking, all the things that go into it.
That doesn't mean there isn't an argument to be made to say you want a dome stadium in Buffalo.
Definitely.
But it's not because of this game. The interesting thing, Dan, the way this works out, the Bills already were playing 8 games in Orchard Park, 9 on the road, based on the schedules. Last year it was the opposite. This is not a road game. It's a game away from home. It's not like they're playing in Cleveland for this game.
Jenna knows where I'm going for this.
Go
Bills
ahead.
are undefeated in home games in Detroit. Undefeated.
Yes.
They're averaging 38
tweet.
points a game.
Great tweet.
Too.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about more stats. We have some Josh Allen stats about him playing in a true dome.
True dome.
Because obviously Josh Allen has been pretty good, 4-0 in that. You can see in some of those stats. 4 interceptions, what we can talk about, because the interceptions have been plaguing Josh Allen as of these last couple of weeks. He leads the league right now with 10 interceptions, which is, I mean, Mike, that's just bizarre to hear that, because we know the player he is and the caliber he has previously been playing at.
I think the biggest thing when people talk about Josh's mistakes is, I have to say, how blatant they've been.
Yeah.
I mean, there are times players throw interceptions where he's fitting it into a small area, guy tips the ball, makes the play. Honestly, we've been at all the games. That's not what it's been.
Yeah.
Josh has had, maybe there's been some miscommunication on a little bit, the one to Gabe Davis, we don't know. Other times it appears he's either not seen a defender, made the wrong read, and it's been relatively easy interceptions. And look, you know who knows the most about this? Josh Allen knows the most about this. He understands that he's been making mistakes. It's not all on him. He brings it on himself. But what he talked about this week was making the right decision and stopping the mistakes.
Decision making, I think, is number one. Trusting the game plan, trusting the guys around me, and not trying to do too much. And Coach Dorsey talks about it, smart but not conservative. So, just trying to get back to that. I can trust somebody else to make a play that I've battled with my entire football career, and trying to do too much sometimes, and it'll hurt you. So, again, just playing quarterback the right way.
I'm fascinated by the look on his face when he says that, because he
Really?
knows it.
Yeah.
He knows it in his heart that he's been that way. That was Wyoming, or that was 2018, even into
Hero
19,
ball.
Josh. You do have guys who can make plays. And Dan, there is a balance there between reining him in a little.
Yeah.
But you're not taking the Josh Allen out of
you're not taking Josh Allen away. It's the decision making. You've talked about it before, that completion percentage is a decision making stat. And right now, Josh is just making the wrong decisions. Hero ball is a part of it. Trying to do too much. Hey guys, they're all supposed to do their 111th. Josh is trying to do 411s. He's trying to do too much. And where you rein him in is also, part of this is on Ken Dorsey.
Yep.
This needs to be said, is that You cannot compliment a quarterback without complimenting the offensive coordinator, and it goes both ways with criticizing. If you're going to criticize the offensive coordinator, you have to be able to criticize Josh Allen. And Josh isn't getting those freebies, those easy throws where Josh doesn't have to think, to take the weight off his shoulders for when Josh does have to be a Superman and does have to hurdle a defender to get a first down. But Ken Dorsey has to come up with more designs, more creativity to take some of that pressure off Josh.
Yeah, Jenna, I'd love to see them come in with a plan that is quick moving, pace on offense, balls out of his hands, get that offense going, get those completions, get the ball down the field, and then take your shots. And I think they'd be able to do that. I think we've seen too much waiting for that big play out of Josh.
I agree, and I think you talk about that creative game plan and what goes into that, but also having some other guys step up as well. Look, we know Stephon Diggs has been phenomenal this season. He has been that safety blanket for Josh Allen. But to see the other receivers get involved as well, because it seems like there's been such a drop-off from Diggs to the other guys.
Yeah, there absolutely has been, and other guys do need to step up. And there are player issues there, you might say. You know, we don't know about Gabe Davis. Maybe it's been a health thing in part, but he hasn't been making the plays. They haven't gotten other guys involved. We know Singletary has struggled in the past part of the game. He's run the ball okay, and McKenzie's had his issues. But, Dan, I think it might be offense or defense, or it might be something bigger around this team.
Well, it seems like this time last year the Bills also went through a slump. They lost in Jacksonville. 2 weeks later, they got blown out by the Colts. And Von Miller, he's in his 12th year in the league, in case you didn't know, and put some perspective on how to handle the highs and the lows and the higher beings that are watching.
When you get a loss like that, the football guys watch the way you handle losses too, and they watch the way you handle wins too. And I just try to, always make those guys proud, because at the end of the season and into the playoffs, like, we're gonna need the football guys, and I just feel like they're trying us now, and we just gotta, keep that energy up and just keep pushing through this adversity, because adversity really does reveal character, and I feel like we have high character guys here, nothing but a bunch of leaders in this locker room.
The football.
It's so fun. I love that so much.
You know, he said it with a slight little smirk, but I think he really believes in the
Bills have been a
gods.
very unlucky team. There's no way to get around. I'm not saying that some of it hasn't been self-inflicted wounds, but they have been an unlucky team. Crazy things have happened to this team so far.
Yeah, including injuries, including health this week, some guys under the weather. But pay homage to the football gods, and it may turn around.
Well, I guess we will see. All right, we're going to talk about those injuries coming up. But we are also going to talk about the Browns, what stands out about Cleveland, and what they've been up to these last couple weeks. We'll have it coming up after the break.
Now, I got to tell everybody, Vaughn spoke about a lot of things. Nothing got Jenna's attention more than Vaughn talking about the Italian restaurant
Mulberry.
in Buffalo. She was ready for the game this week, wanted to go to dinner at Mulberry.
It sounded really good.
Yeah.
It sounded tasty.
I don't know if any of you have been to that restaurant.
I don't know.
Now you
I'm
know,
sure.
and now all the players
I think it's
know
in
that
Lackawanna.
every fan now
Von
knows
Miller's
that's where they go.
Vaughn's
Clams.
linguine.
Clam linguine.
It's a good choice.
Yeah.
Linguine and clams. I call it linguine and clams.
It is. That's what
Yeah.
everybody but Vaughn calls it.
Yeah.
But the linguine gods wanted him to call it that. So yeah, that was entertaining. Vaughn is entertaining.
Also, at the end of that bite, that last soundbite from Von Miller talking about the football gods, he talked about the high character people in the locker room, the coaching staff. But he went as far to continue talking about the lunch ladies, the janitors. He's like, we can get through this adversity, and he talked about how high character everyone is in the building. And it's just he loves.
He loves everything.
I was just say.
Randy Proke saying it's true, Dan. The all-22, the red zone is showing no open receivers. Josh has no one open from poor play design. Yes, that's part of it. You can criticize the play design, but you also don't have to throw the interception. Like there can be a poorly designed play, and you don't have to throw the ball to the other team.
And the other thing we saw was early in the game against the Vikings, they ran it in the red zone effectively and had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That can open things up. Believe me, every coach in the league will say, if you can run it in the red zone, it opens things up.
We're going to take a quick break.
Every coach.
Okay, stop talking. All right, welcome back to Buffalo Plus, presented by Connors and Ferris. Once again, this game will be in Detroit on Sunday, the Bills and the Browns. But let's talk a little bit about this Cleveland team. They're 3-6 on the season. There, you saw it. It's going to be fun in Detroit this upcoming weekend, and then back in for Thanksgiving as well. But talking about talking about the Browns now, this game in Detroit, they're a team that has been struggling as of late. I know they have a lot of talent, though, Mike, on that roster.
They do. They put together a good roster, and then the disastrous decision for Deshaun Watson to be signed, and then he comes to the Browns after they sign him, and he's suspended until week 13. So he practiced a little this week, but Jacoby Brissett is the starter, and I think this franchise, I feel for their fans. I really do. I think the fan base is similar to a Bills fan base. Back in the day, in the 80s, they were really good. They got close, and their disappointment happened before the Super Bowl. These fans have lived with this. Then you go out and get them a quarterback, and it's Deshaun Watson. And I think it has put a pale on this entire franchise, where lifelong fans have said, I don't feel good rooting for this team.
They were supposed to turn this team around on character, guys like Nick Chubb, young draft classes, all of those things that were supposed to really kind of carry this team, and it just simply hasn't. They've lost 5 out of their last 6, and it really all started from the monumental collapse against the Jets back in week 2. They somehow managed to lose that game instead of taking Nick Chubb stopping on the goal line, goes into the end zone. They missed the extra point. They went up 13 points in the final minute and lost to the Jets.
Yeah, I think, too, when you talk about, Mike, earlier about the similarities between the Bills and the Browns, like when Kevin Stefanski took over, you felt like there was that culture change. And some of his personality kind of reminds me of Sean McDermott, the discipline and all these things. But obviously, both of these franchises have kind of gone in different directions. But, I mean, you got to talk to John Doss this week, a reporter for the Browns in terms of covering the team. And he just talked about how wildly unexpected things have kind of gone.
Yeah, John used to cover the Bills, used to work with us. And I asked him about that, the impact, especially with what went on with Deshaun Watson, has had on this entire franchise.
They have shown flashes. You watched the Monday night game 2 weeks ago when they crushed the Bengals. This is the most talented 3-6 team maybe ever. And that's hyperbole, obviously, because I don't know all the 3-6 teams that's ever played. But there is so much talent on this Browns team. It really is just simply about motivation. There's no fire on this team. The Browns' best players, Ward, Garrett, Chubb, are often the most quiet guys on the team. There is no fire. And I think you can have that when you have a potentially fiery head coach. But the Browns don't have that either.
There's no fire on this team.
Now,
his voice
is real.
Yes.
And it's spectacular. But the other part John mentioned was he felt the entire franchise, when that suspension came out, it was almost like a message of wait till next year. And that's a hard thing in the NFL. It doesn't mean they couldn't have won some of these close games and could have been in the running. They believe if they can win the next couple and then they get Watson back, who hasn't played in almost 2 years, they could make a run. I guess they could, but it's going to take a couple of big efforts that they haven't shown.
Well, Dan, real quick, their run game, does it scare you? Because obviously there is a ton of potential there.
Yeah, this is a matchup that you don't, especially if this was played in the snow, it would have been a massive advantage for Cleveland against this Bills rushing defense. Probably the toughest task they will have had to face this year. This Browns offensive line is legit, but you still have Jacoby Brissett, and this is, again, a team that has just found ways. Good teams find a way to win. Bad teams find a way to lose. That's this Browns team.
Oh, yeah, that's certainly the case. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and coming up after that, we're going to talk about the Bills' injuries, Trey White's status, and when we could see Jordan Poyer back on the field. We'll have it coming up.
So if you want more of John's voice, he is available on the YouTube channel. He hears it all the time. I think in his Twitter bio it says, "The voice is real, the ears are fake." That's what it says, which is kind of funny.
John Doss married my wife and I.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, he
was
did. That's right.
I was like,
the way you phrased that.
And then the one day we're there, and then he's on The Bachelor.
That's true.
That's right.
Well, he was working with the Browns.
Yes.
He
through
wasn't,
ABC.
Well, he wasn't a contestant on The Bachelor.
Phrasing matters.
Good thing you're not the host.
Yeah, I could never do that.
But But that Brown, it is sort of fascinating to see them. And look, they have the Bills,
They
and
are
then
talented,
they have
yeah.
somebody good coming up the next week. And that was the idea, is Vikings maybe. And it's like, can they win these? Yeah, I guess they could. I will say, you made a good point. This game moving to Detroit,
huge.
You don't have the crowd, obviously, the same as it would be, though I think people will make it there. But you do have the dome and that fast track, and I think it's great.
Well, we talked about it. It's like playing on ice skates as opposed to on a carpet.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so much different in terms of what this team does well in terms of the Bills.
I love Ford Field.
I've
That's
never
one
been.
of
I'm
my
actually
favorite-
very excited.
One of my
Favorite
favorite
stadium.
places.
I'm
One of my
very
favorite places to
excited.
shoot.
Yeah, if they were going to build a dome in Buffalo, I would want it to be like Ford Field. I
Agreed.
love the place. I love the setup.
I am very excited to go there.
Yeah.
Because I have not been.
Yeah, I've been there a lot. Bills played there every other year in the preseason, so I did a preseason game there.
You did
probably
preseason?
10 years of doing that. And then they played there in the regular. I think the games are fun there.
Yeah.
So
And they'll be
now
going
we get
back
two
there.
of them. That's it. The home away from home.
All
so.
right. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Buffalo Plus, presented by Connors and Ferris. Let's take a quick look at the Bills injury report and what this means for Buffalo, sponsored by UR Medicine, Sports Medicine. Some of the names that stand out, obviously Josh Allen still dealing with that elbow injury. Of course, he's been limited. But another guy coming back to practice this week, Jordan Poyer, Dan. What does he mean to this team?
Everything. Is that fair to say? They are undefeated when Poyer is in. They are 1-3 when Poyer is out of the lineup. Without Micah Hyde, with Tremaine Edmonds being in and out, he is the most important player on this Bills defense. They have missed him mightily when he hasn't been there. It's a big one.
Yeah, and Poyer is important in so many ways, Jenna. When you look at a guy like him out on the field, if Poyer's out there, what did he and Hyde do? They do a lot of things well. And we don't have Hyde now, but what they do is
the quarterback.
Well, they're always aware of the big play. Mm-hmm. That has been the basis of this defense. Do not give up the big plays. Yeah. Even in the run game, they gave up that 80-yard run for a touchdown last week.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes about a missed tackle or angles.
Bad angles.
Give up 25, don't give up 80.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to drag that guy out of bounds. You've got to make the play. And they always are conscious of that in the pass game.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody get over your head. The Bills were the best in the league at not giving up big plays, and it's come back to bite them a little
touchdown
bit.
in Miami.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
long
big
completion
play
on
down
third
close.
long.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, that elbow, you guys saw him at practice. I mean, that's got that big thing on there.
Considerable
It's
brace.
got to be painful to him.
Other injury, just real quick. Josh Allen did not throw a football in the media portion of practice that we saw.
You saw him doing those mental reps.
But I think it's just pitch count like it would be for a pitcher, saving his throws for what really matters.
Yeah, I completely
just wanted to get that
agree
in
with
there.
All right, talking about injuries, though, Trey White has been, once again, he's been back to practice, Mike, Dan, for these last couple of weeks. I mean, Mike, when do you expect him to be back out there?
I think the plan, from what I've heard, is the Patriots game.
Okay.
So he would not play these two games in Detroit, in the Dome, and then he would come back for that game. And we've talked about this, Jenna. I think the team believes he's past everything health-wise. Mm-hmm. He's ready to come back. A player knows his own body, in his own mind. Trey has been team guy first and foremost, but now he's back coming off the first major injury of his career. And it's a mental hurdle for a guy to come back from that. He's worked really hard to get there. I don't think he believes he's ready yet. Maybe he's close, but that's what I've been hearing, is that first week in December that he'd play in Foxborough.
They need him. They need a boost mentally on the field, because just like we talked about Jordan Poyer, while Christian Benford and Kyrie Elam have had nice moments, it's the lack of consistency. It's an interception by Dane Jackson, and then it's giving up a long completion or to Cam Lewis, one of those things. Having Trey makes everybody around him better.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see how that factors in when he gets back onto the field and what that means for the Bills. Look, we have so much fun with this show. We always want to thank Greg Connors for all of his support with this, our sponsor. Greg weighed in this week on what he expects from the Bills as they take on Cleveland.
So I'm not worried about Josh. I think Josh is going to be fine because he's going to learn. He's going to grow from it just like he has in the past. But if McDermott continues to put him in the situation where he feels that way and then he makes the wrong decisions, which he unfortunately does 50% of the time, you've got to remember, he's going to mess up 50% of the time. So I think if you limit that exposure to Josh making that decision, which he's done all the way through his high school and college career, he's going to be fine.
An interesting take that he had on putting Josh in these positions where he continues to say, I've got to be the guy.
Yeah.
And Greg's take was, you've got teammates around you. Like we've said, maybe other guys to step up there, put him in those positions. Let him take a half a step back.
Yeah.
Not all the way back, because like I said to you, Dan, he's got to still be Josh Allen. Take a little off of his plate, and I think he'll play well. I think the turnaround is coming. It's going to happen in Detroit.
Yeah, so Greg predicting the Bills to win this game. Coming up after the break, we'll have our picks and predictions for Sunday against Cleveland. We'll have it coming up.
Wow.
Dan's yawning over here.
Yeah. So,
wow, rude.
So here's the plan: Jenna and I are going to Detroit for the game. We hope
you should just
Saturday.
stay there.
Stay in. You know what?
Detroit. Dan would.
This is not.
Well, no. How would Jenna get home? She doesn't drive.
Yeah, that's true.
Driving Miss.
Let me tell you
Miss
something.
Daisy.
Detroit.
Is that a movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a movie.
Okay.
Detroit, great stadiums. Love the airport.
Great airport.
Casinos.
Several.
Yeah, Dan knows the casinos. A few nice restaurants and all, Motown, that kind of thing. I don't want to stay there for 5 days.
I like Detroit.
If it's Detroit-style pizza.
Oh, I'm into that.
Nah.
Really?
It's so good. Yeah.
Lasagna.
Yeah.
Detroit? No, that's Chicago.
Well, Chicago's
Oh,
just
you're right.
nice.
Oh,
Detroit style is really good.
Take that back. Detroit style is delicious.
Yeah.
Totally mix those up.
Yeah.
Chicago pizza, they do a lot of things well in Chicago.
Yeah.
Hey,
Not
wait.
pizza.
Ryan Montag.
Right?
Doing great, Dan. You're never wrong.
Oh, Ryan.
What's the date?
Really?
What's the time?
Please.
Blocked.
Shut up, Ryan.
Blocked.
So, yeah, we'll be going out to Detroit for the game and coming back. Because that's what the team's doing. They're flying out Saturday.
Yeah,
They're
a little
coming back
different.
Sunday after the game. They're going back on Wednesday.
That's the plan. Yep.
Yeah.
I hope it. What if there's like no snow?
I don't think that's
I
gonna
think
happen.
that's impossible. I trust Scott Hetzko.
I do too.
He
He's a
holds back
Vikings
on a
fan,
lot, and
but-
he's like,
He was
Ugly.
very. Oh, how much time do you have?
About 10
Oh,
seconds.
30. Okay, less than 30. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I kind of zoned out.
Come on, host the show.
it's been tough. Jenna's not listening to other people today.
No. Well, I can't hear. Because you're talking too much.
Melody just said 10.
All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Buffalo Plus, presented by Connors and Ferris. All right, this game we know is going to be in Detroit. Dan, you mentioned earlier how much that could help the Bills in this one. What is your prediction for this game?
I think the game being played indoors in Detroit opens up the Bills' entire playbook and gives them a chance to reset on offense against a really, really bad Browns defense. This is a team that has holes all over their secondary. I think Josh, Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, everybody gets involved in the party this week. Again, Browns defense, really bad. Bills offense gets back on track. 30-24, I think the running game could give some issues.
Really? So that's actually pretty close, though.
Yeah, I think the Bills aren't blowing anybody out right now.
See, I feel like this will be a bounce-back effort for Buffalo.
I thought that last week.
Okay, well,
They were also up 17 in the second half.
They were. A tale of two halves.
It was.
So going into my pick for this game, I also have the Bills winning this one. But look, the Bills have lost 2 games in a row. That's uncharacteristic for a Sean McDermott team. And like Dan said, this game is going to be indoors, and that really does mean that the Bills have the ability to throw the ball. They don't have to rely as much on that run game. They don't have to rely on something that really hasn't been working all that well throughout these last couple of games. Josh Allen, I think, gets back to being Josh Allen. The receivers step up as well. The offense in general steps up. I just think that this is a game. Jordan Poyer is looking like he's going to be playing as well. That is huge for this Buffalo team. I have the Bills winning this one. I have it being a convincing win because that's exactly what this Bills team needs to do. They need to put up points, and a lot of them, to prove they are one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, I think the same thing, Jenna. I think they're coming back this week. And Josh Allen, I would say ever since the 2019 playoff game where he had that collapse in the second half, he's been ascending. And even last year when they went through that bad stretch, he still had some really good games, like the one in Tampa when he brought him back. I think after this game and the mistakes he made is the first time publicly by the big-scale NFL national media he's been doubted. And I didn't think he wanted to hear that. And I think he comes back. We saw him on the field at the end of that game. It was an angry Josh Allen at himself and the circumstances. I think he comes back. I think he's healthy enough. He's not 100%. But I think being in that dome, the passing game is going. I have the Bills scoring some points and winning the game back in the 30s, 31-17 over Cleveland.
You talk about the Bills being doubted.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan, for so long they've been the team that is being hunted because of how good and the expectations. What do you think it means for this team to have some of those bandwagon national media, other people
It's also
jump
just
off?
a humbling experience. We talked about earlier when they were 6-1. The fact is to try and it's hard to focus when your coach is telling you we got to be better, guys. When you're winning games,
Yep.
Yeah,
I think these
that's
last
fair.
2 losses have been refocusing, especially the way they have shot themselves in the foot because they should have won by 4 points. They should have covered all of those things.
And the football gods will be with them in Detroit.
They're always watching.
That's it.
According to Von Miller.
That's
All
it.
right, here's a look at all of our picks for this game against the Browns in this one, Week 11 in this one. And as always, please be sure to join us on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. You can scan the QR code right there with your smartphone. That'll take you directly to our page. Please be sure to like, comment what you think the score of this game will be, as well as, most importantly, subscribe. We always appreciate all the support as we are closing in on 20,000 subscribers. As always, we so appreciate it. For Mike Catalana and Dan Fetes, I am Jenna Cottrell. Thank you for joining us here on Buffalo Plus, presented by Connors and Ferris.